Hi guys, welcome back to the man cave of an acting teacher for another video. I hope you're well. Been out for a lovely walk this morning. The sun is shining, so I hope you're okay and I hope you're having a nice day today. I'm going to talk a little bit about physical transformation into character today. I got a question from Joe, nice to hear from you Joe, who asked a question about animal work, which I briefly mentioned 2 videos ago when I talked about method acting. Okay, so in terms of characterization, okay, a little while ago I made a video about characterization where I talked about separations, okay, and we make a list of physical ways in which we are not like our character, and then a list of ways that we are not like our character psychologically, and they're our separations, okay, and then what we do is we bridge those gaps, okay. So in terms of Stanislavski and his basics, right, we have things like given circumstances, right? We have objective, which is what your character wants. We have the character's crisis, the core problem of the character, etc. And you can take these on, and they're psychological ideas. Okay, so I can take on psychologically that I am, I don't know, poorly educated. All right, I can take on psychologically that I have an objective to get the girl to go out on a date with me. Okay, that's my character's objective. I take that on, I go for that, and it makes me feel like I'm them because I'm being taken over by their desires rather than my own. Okay, I won't go on, but I'm sure you can see how these are psychological changes that we make. And they, if we really own them, can make us feel feelings that seem real, as Stanislavski called that, okay? So then I feel like this guy that wants this girl to go out on a date, which means I'm no longer me, because I don't want that girl to go on the date. The character does. So now I've moved psychologically into the character, okay? We can make that really rich by filling our mind with the character's images, memories, not our memories in terms of emotion memory, but the character's own memories, the character's own images, the character's own objectives and everything else, right? And the more we load that stuff up psychologically, the more we feel like we are them. And if we really go into that and concentrate on that, we can get a sensation that we're really looking out of the character's eyes at the world around us, okay? However, we haven't changed physically. Most of the time, the industry won't require you to because it does base itself on typecasting for the most part, right? And that, again, that's not a dirty word. I spoke about that in another video as well. It's unlikely that a casting director is going to, cast somebody who weighs 100 kilos in a part where the character is, 55 kilos and then say to them, okay, now you have to lose 45 kilos. More than likely, they're just going to hire the guy who weighs 55 kilos and get them to play the part. That makes sense, okay? However, as you go on in your career, if you do become, very well regarded as an actor, you may well be asked to play parts that require you to transform more physically into character, okay? And certainly in the theatre, you will be asked to do this quite a bit as well, all right? So it's a good skill to have. And I know that you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, well, what big Hollywood stars have to do this? Well, there's the obvious ones like Daniel Day-Lewis, right, who essentially only does this. This is his way. It's his I don't think he would bother with a script that was pretty much like him, unless it had a particular interest to him. He seems to only choose things where he transforms into character. But even actors that seem to be more your kind of, garden variety Hollywood star, if you like Tom Hanks or Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt, you literally can name pretty much all of them. At some point, they will have been asked to do something that requires physical transformation into character, such as Forrest Gump. Philadelphia, okay, where there's an illness. Basketball Diaries, Leonardo DiCaprio. Drug addiction, Forrest Gump, okay, intellectual or mental disability, right? Even Brad Pitt with California was required a physical change, okay? Benjamin Button, obviously, as well. So, obviously Brad Pitt will do those Hollywood films where he's pretty much hired to pour himself into a suit and look gorgeous for everybody and walk around a casino like Ocean's 11 or whatever it is, and he'll do those. But, I think you'll probably find, even though I don't know Brad Pitt or Leonardo DiCaprio personally by any means, I think if you had a conversation with them, they would probably say that they do look out for the more challenging roles where they do have to transform into character physically, as well as, you know, the money roles, right, where they fill up the bank account. Yeah. Okay, so what do we do to do this, right? So in my technique, we have this thing called idiosyncratic transformation. I know it sounds long and scientific. I've already explained it a good bit. It's quite simple, really. What you're doing is you are taking your idiosyncrasies, right? You're removing those idiosyncrasies and you are building the idiosyncratic pattern, all the habits, the gestures, the posture of the character, okay? Now, there will be clues about that in the script itself, okay? It might say that your character has a heroin addiction or your character has a cerebral palsy or whatever the case may be. And sometimes it will be up to your imagination, because you might just imagine that that character moves and thinks differently. That will, you know, be provoked, I suppose, by the script as well, okay? So that's the idiosyncratic transformation kind of idea. Going to Joe's question about animal work, right? You may have noticed sometimes if you are walking down the street, you see someone walking along and you think that person's very like a meerkat, or very like a walrus, or very like a, I don't know, a chihuahua, or something like that. And, you know, sometimes you see people who look like they're dogs. People do tend, if you use your imagination a bit, to kind of resemble different animals. And you can use the characteristics of animals to create character, okay? So if you are playing a very heavy character of some kind, you might borrow the behaviors of a sea elephant or a walrus or something, or a rhinoceros or a hippo perhaps, to create that character. And it's a very enjoyable and kind of silly, playful process, but it really does reap some really interesting results when you can borrow the idiosyncrasies of the animal and build your character's physical way, okay? I did this myself at acting school. We had to go to the zoo. I remember the exercise where we all went to the zoo and we found an animal and chose an animal and then studied its idiosyncratic sort of habits and everything and created characters using those. And mine was actually a meerkat, now that I remember, right? So that is a system, right? And it is involved in method, right? Stanislavski has a very interesting one, again, much more obscure. Most people don't know about it, right? Called tempo rhythm. And tempo rhythm is quite simply, putting it simply, even though it's a very complex tool, but putting it simply, is the idea that we all have a different kind of rhythm to ourselves, okay? So if we gauge it out of 10, for example, I might be an 8. I move pretty fast, I think pretty fast, I talk too fast, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe I'm a 7 or an 8 out of 10. You might know someone who's, yeah, just a 3, and they just slow down, yeah, and that's a kind of a different tempo rhythm. So if you notice in your script that your character is quite quick, maybe they're a stockbroker or a stock market, you know, person or whatever, or maybe they're, you know, constantly smoking dope, you know, you might pit your tempo rhythm, you know, on the upper end of the 1 out of 10, of the 10 to 1 scale, or the lower end, and play with that. Now, I say it's a complex tool because you can have an internal tempo rhythm and an external tempo rhythm, and they can juxtapose each other. A little bit like a swan gliding along, but underneath the feet are going like that, you know, that kind of idea. Stanislavski used to walk into his studio in the morning and say to his students, how's your tempo rhythm today? Meaning that it's also affected by your environment and what's happening to you. So if you've got a hangover, your tempo rhythm might be different to when you've just drunk 3 cans of Red Bull one after the other, or something like that. If you've got a stomach bug, if you're carrying grief around with you, your circumstances can also change your tempo rhythm, all right? Now, I can't go into all of these sort of systems and approaches and tools that different systems have because we'll run out of time. But the idea for an actor, if you are interested in this work, is to train in it in a sort of a training capacity that will help you to get to know yourself physically, to come to know your body, what it does and what it's capable of, and then train it to a point of being strong and fit and malleable so that you can gain weight, lose weight, change your load-bearing muscles, right, to create shape, and it won't kill you, because it is physically, it's very demanding depending on the character, of course. And those are wonderful, very interesting training methods, such as Etienne Decroux, okay, who is sort of I guess the forefather of kind of modern mime, okay, corporal mime. You have Jacques Lecoq's work, okay, Suzuki, which was then taken by Anne Bogart to the States, and she worked a lot on Suzuki over there, and Viewpoints, okay, as well. So there's lots of them. There's many more. In Ireland here, there is a theatre company called Blue Raincoat up in Sligo. I was very lucky to get to be in one of their plays a long while ago now. And they do all of their performance based, I suppose, through Viewpoints, Suzuki and Decroux, I think, for the most part. I hope I'm not misquoting. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have got the job with them if I didn't have, at least to some extent, those kind of skills to bring to the party, to bring to bear, you know. So anyway, look, that's physical transformation into character, okay. You can study it, of course, right? And I'm very happy to take you through idiosyncratic transformation, the one that I teach. I know Decroux and I know Lecoq, but I certainly wouldn't consider myself qualified to teach them on my own, right? As a kind of a course of my own. But I can certainly borrow from them to help you with your specific physical needs, you know, to turn you into an actor that can transform into character. It's fun, it's playful, right? And it may not be asked of you as much as your type will be asked of you, but hey, look, you just never know when something like that might pop up. I mean, hopefully you'll get one of these films where your character is 16, or maybe not that young, but maybe 20 years old in scene 1, and 75 years old by the end of the film. And you have to age them in an arc over the course of the film. Daniel Day-Lewis's work in There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood, his character falls down a silver mine in the first scene and breaks his leg, and that progressively affects him all the way through the arc of his life. It's an absolutely extraordinary physical gauging of the journey of the character throughout that film, and of course he was rewarded with an Academy Award for it as well, all right? It's interesting that the Academy does actually reward this kind of acting a lot. They do tend to you know, really kind of reserve a big box that gets ticked for actors who use their bodies and commit, you know, physically to their characters and perhaps transform when they're playing roles. Look, that'll do. I think that's enough. If you want to ask me any questions, you know where to find me. If you want to do a class, let me know. Please stay safe. Please stay well. And I will do another video for you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye, guys.